real good faith in my height. Thank you. Okay. Around the age of 15, I became religiously adventurous. My parents were raised Catholic, but converted to Buddhism when they were in their early 20s. With that, my siblings and I were raised practicing Buddhism. Our sect of Buddhism is just about as casual as religion could be. Our meetings were full of entertaining discussions and exotic foods. No topic was taboo, and the general message was, just don't be an asshole. Granted, I'm paraphrasing, but this gave me a lot of freedom in my childhood, especially when it came to experiencing other religions. When I was 7, my parents moved my siblings and I from New Jersey to the great big state of Texas. We found some Buddhist members here and began practicing as per usual. But this was the first time that I ever felt truly embarrassed about my religious faith. When my friends came over and saw my mom chanting, I would hurriedly rush them into the room, mumbling, "Oh, she's just talking to herself. She does that." When they would ask me if I was going to church on Sunday, I would say, "Yeah, we're going to church with the celestial name down the street." And I would make sure to say a church that I knew that they didn't go to. Eventually, I stopped practicing Buddhism, and altogether I began thinking about going to church, which led me to my first and last, first and last experience with Pentecostals. Oh, Father. It was my junior year of high school, and I began to hang out with this new girl in town named Tiffany. Tiffany's family was from Idaho, and they were devout Pentecostals. Tiffany wasn't allowed to wear makeup, cut her hair, the whole 9 yards. Tiffany's brother, Jeremy, was basically allowed to do whatever he wanted, which included dating almost every girl in the church, flirting with almost every girl outside of the church, and filling the gaps in between. I was in love with Jeremy, as much as a 15-year-old could be in love with anybody. After hanging around Tiffany and her family for a while, I asked her if I could go to church with her so that I could be religiously rigorous. Truth be told, I mostly wanted to flirt with her brother, but I wasn't going to admit that. Tiffany was ecstatic that I had asked and shrieked with excitement. She even found an ankle-length skirt for me to wear and helped me take off some of my makeup. A few hours later, I found myself in one of the grandest churches that I have ever been in, aside from Lakewood Church. The stage could have held a public school graduation, and the pews were the pews were full of folks. The church itself was deep in the backwoods of Crosby, which should have said something to me, but I was too fixated on Jeremy's big blue eyes. As the service went on, we went through a transition of songs, the welcoming of guests, and so on and so forth. What came next was something that I don't think that I could have ever been prepared for. The organist began to play a solemn and slow piece, and some of the church members began bowing their heads in prayer. I wish for the life of me that I could remember what the pastor was saying, but all I can remember was the jogging. Unexpectedly, at least to me, the pastor's sermon began to go on, and people were getting up and jogging, faster and faster, in circles around the seated crowd. One more person would get up, and then 2, and then 3, and then suddenly it seemed like that there were 20-plus little boys jogging their asses off around everyone. Everyone around me was not the slightest bit fazed by any of this, but while I was silently freaking the fuck out, I was thinking, why are they jogging? Am I supposed to be jogging? Why didn't someone tell me about the jogging? As the sermon continued, the jogging kept on, and I began to notice my immediate surroundings. Some of the church members had begun to cry. No. Not just crying, but sobbing, wailing, and eventually screaming and screeching for the Lord. They began to stretch out their arms and cling on to one another and brace themselves for the ferocity inside of them. Amen. Later, I found out that they were experiencing God and becoming overwhelmed with faith. However, at the time, I was terrified. There were hundreds of men and women clinging together and sobbing on one another, grabbing onto them, some at random, and speaking in tongues. So there I am, 15-year-old little Buddhist girl, not knowing what the hell I was supposed to do. I did what anyone would do. I started fake crying. I wasn't really good at it, but no one seemed to notice. They took it more as an acceptance and clung onto me harder. This lasted just about 10 minutes. 10 long, wet, sobbing minutes. After those 10 minutes, the men and women wiped up their tears. The boys slowed down their jogging to a quick, brisk walk, then they took their seats. The pastor's tone towards the sermon lightened, and the song was soon to follow. I didn't recover as well as everyone else seemed to. My face was in a permanent state of shock for the rest of the evening. Even when we went to Iguana Joe's for their shit Tex-Mex delight. I'd like to say that was my last time that I went to their church, but that would be a lie. My crush was strong, and the struggle was real. I attended that church about 10 more times before I finally called it quits. Jeremy didn't really like me, and I began to notice after a while. The real reason why I stopped going didn't have anything to do with the things that I previously mentioned. The last time that I attended service, the preacher chastised the women to the church who willingly hung around non-pennies. That's what they call them. Those who wore jeans, makeup, and fraternized with the homosexuals. As a bisexual, makeup-wearing, jean-strutting Buddhist, I finally called it quits.